Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. So Derek Carr just officially signed with the New Orleans Saints, and right away my initial reaction was, man, Chris Olave is about to have an insane season. Let me tell you guys why Chris Olave is about to go off in year 2. So I know what everyone is thinking right away when they're trying to hate on this Derek Carr to the Saints move. They're saying, hey, Derek Carr just came off of his worst season. How do we know Derek Carr is going to be any good? Russell Wilson really struggled in his last year with the Seahawks, and look how that turned out with the Broncos. I completely get it, and I don't think you're hating to say Derek Carr is declining at the moment. But in my opinion, I just don't think that is the case with Derek Carr. To me, if a quarterback has 2 or 3 bad games, it kind of clouds the rest of their season. And to me, that is what happened with Derek Carr. He played really bad in that Patriots game, had 1 or 2 bad reads, had a bad Chargers game, but besides that, to me, the physical attributes and the physical ability is still there from Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a very high character, high IQ football player. In my opinion, I think he's going to be just fine with the New Orleans Saints. He's going to be going into a new system with some young players, some really good playmakers, a good defense, a competent organization, something that the Raiders, no offense to the Raiders, have not been over the last decade or so. So in my opinion, this is a very nice change of scenery for Derek Carr. So Chris Olave, despite having really erratic quarterback play in his rookie year, obviously you had Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston wasn't the greatest last year. They brought in Andy Dalton, who I honestly think was slightly better than Jameis Winston last year, despite some of the interceptions and gunslinging mentality that Andy Dalton really adapted last year, which was a really change of pace from the rest of his career. So Chris Olave in 9 starts, but in 15 games in total, he had 72 catches for 1,042 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is honestly insane that he got 1,000 yards with how the Saints season really went last year. So you look at Derek Carr. Derek Carr loves using guys who are really good in the short game, and Chris Olave is a guy who's elite in the short game, very good in the intermediate game, and very good in the deep game as well. I look at a guy like Hunter Renfrow, who in 2021 with Derek Carr, he had 103 catches, 1,038 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's a crazy year from Hunter Renfrow. Not to diss Hunter Renfrow or anything, but in my opinion, Chris Olave is significantly more talented than Hunter Renfrow. We know Hunter Renfrow really excels at the short game, but something about Chris Olave that stands out to me immediately is Chris Olave fast. Does he have good straight line speed? Yes, he does, but something that's even more impressive than that is his acceleration and burst at the line of scrimmage. He's somebody who really digs his cleats into the ground and makes those insanely sharp cuts in those routes that are 3, 4, 5 yards down the field. That's something that Derek Carr absolutely loves as a first or second option. I could so envision Chris Olave being one of the best third and short receivers in the National Football League last year because of that insane skill set to, again, burst off the line of scrimmage and create separation right away. That's a reason why the Saints drafted him with the 11th pick in the NFL draft last year. Something that Derek Carr also really likes is zone defenses. In my opinion, Derek Carr is a better zone defense quarterback than he is a man-to-man quarterback because Derek Carr sometimes struggles with that insane, just exact pin drop ball placement. But with Chris Olave in a zone is so good at just breaking down the zone, finding the soft spot, and really just sitting in that soft spot. That was one of his main strengths coming out of Ohio State, and it really came to fruition last year with the Saints. Such a high IQ football player from the receiver position coming out of the draft. That's such a rare trait to have, and that's something Derek Carr is really going to lean on with Chris Olave this season. Considering guys like Alvin, Kamara, and Michael Thomas are a bit erratic in terms of the amount of games they're going to play, with the amount they're just going to be available for the Saints going into next year, I wouldn't even be shocked to see either of those guys moved, but assuming the roster stays pretty similar going into next year with Derek Carr, to me, Chris Olave is their number 1 receiver. To me, Chris Olave is more talented than Michael Thomas at this point, post all of the injuries and post really all of the breakups and sit-outs for Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, one of his main strengths was body control in the air. He's so good at contorting his body to the ball mid-air. That was really his main strength. I know people would say his main strength was slants. To me, it was really that jump ball ability on those 10-yard, 15-yard comeback routes, those 10-yard fade routes going into the end zone. Just the way he contorted his body really reminded me of a prime Dez Bryant. And that's something that Chris Olave also does extremely well. He's so good at contorting his body mid-air and really adjusting to the catch. catch, which is something Derek Carr will also love. So in my opinion, considering the Michael Thomas injuries, I really think Chris Olave is going to have at least 1,300 yards this season, at least 7 touchdowns. And to me, he's a must draft in fantasy football. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the first 2 rounds of the draft. And you know what? If you have Chris Olave going into your season as the second receiver on your fantasy team, man, you might win the league. If he's your first receiver on your fantasy team, I think you'll be just fine. I think you'll have some people panicking about Chris Olave being a receiver 1 in fantasy. I'm very comfortable with that idea. So Chris Olave is about to have a breakout season for the New Orleans Saints.